It's 1979. John Deacon is hanging out at Chic's studio, and he's got a crazy idea. What if I wrote a funk song for Queen?
No, John, I don't want to play it.
Then I'm all for it.
It's not us.
Us.
But then John hit them with it,
That's quite a cool riff, actually.
and a #1 hit was born. But if John Deacon hadn't done these 5 key things, Another One Bites the Dust would not have been a hit, and I can prove it. I mean, even just without this first key, the song wouldn't have had that irresistible head-bopping vibe. So how did Deaky make it impossible not to dance to this song? Through the brilliant use of a trick I call the rhythm contrast method. And it's not the usual bass rhythm advice of follow the kick drum. Here's how it works. Between the bass and the drums, one rhythm needs to be simple and the other can be complex. And in Another One Bites the Dust, which instrument is playing the more complex rhythm? Right, the complex bass rhythm is contrasted by the simple on-the-beat drums. Since this song was written starting with the complex bass rhythm, that means Deacon pushed drummer Roger Taylor to keep his rhythm simple to leave space for the bass. Without the rhythm contrast method, a more amateur drummer might have played a complex beat that fought with the bass line. This method is an easy way to come up with bass lines that automatically lock in with the drums, which, if you ever try to come up with a cool bass line on the spot, it's kind of hard. But if we reverse engineer Bites the Dust and start with the simple drum beat, you could basically stick any complex bass rhythm on top of this and it'll sound cool. Although John Deacon came up with a particularly kick-ass version, most of My Noodles don't get almost 2 billion streams on Spotify. And you can use the rhythm contrast method the other way around too, like in 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover by Paul Simon, where Steve Gadd played an iconically unique and complex drum groove, which is best supported by the simple, spacious notes used in the bass part.
I'll repeat myself at the risk of being crude.
Because Another One Bites the Dust was written from the bass riff up, it also breaks a quote-unquote rule that bass players are taught to follow, which is to stay out of the singer's way, meaning you just play super simple, supportive, almost invisible stuff while they're singing and save all your noodles and fills for in between the lyrics. But Freddie actually arranged his vocal to follow the bass rhythm, and there's a lot of overlap of when John and Freddie are making sound and when they're silent. Freddie was following the rhythm contrast method, but in a different way, joining in on the existing complex bass rhythm, while Roger laid it down simple disco dummy style.
I'd always wanted to do something a little bit more that was disco-y, which was very uncool at the time.
Which apparently Roger was really unhappy about, as he and Brian felt the band should stay in the more rock and roll lane of Don't Stop Me Now and We Are the Champions. It's possible Queen wouldn't even have released Bites the Dust if they weren't encouraged by Michael Jackson, another up-and-coming indie artist you should really check out.
You guys, you're going to put that song out. And I wasn't particularly enamored with it, so I said, no, you're kidding, it's never a single.
So yeah, Deaky nailed the rhythm hard enough to make Michael Jackson say, "That's it, that's the gravy." And Freddie nailed what is one of the most singable anthems ever. And there's a big difference between a singable, anthemic #1 mega hit and a hot mess like this, which would be lucky to hit the top 1,000. The difference? Making the right anthemic note choices. Otherwise, good luck singing along to Another One Bites the Dust or Another One Bites the Dust. So how did John Deacon pick the right notes to not sound like Baby's First bass line or pseudo jazz note explosion? Well, this is where I could say some predictable bass teacher crap about the anthropological significance of the minor pentatonic scale. But really, there's a much simpler way to understand how anthemic bass riffs and melodies work. It just takes the 2 checkboxes of the anthemic riff checklist. Checkbox 1, are the notes kind of close together so even an unskilled singer can join in and sound okay? Close together meaning they're not too far apart on the fretboard or the piano keyboard, so this is easy to sing, but this is hard to sing. And checkbox 2, just not too many different notes, like maybe 3 to 5, so you don't need Sherlock Holmes' Mind Palace musical memory just to hold it in your brain. This is just 3 notes. That's great. This one is too many notes to sing in sports games. Most people can't sing this. If you check those 2 boxes, you can make a riff singable with any scale, really. There's Smoke on the Water, just 4 notes from the blues scale. Blister in the Sun, 3 notes from the major scale. And some claps. Seven Nation Army, 5 notes from the minor scale. Or We Will Rock You, just 4 notes from the minor scale. But John Deacon was really f***ing good at the anthemic riff checklist. A man of few words, but just the right number of notes.
Hello, it's John Deacon here. As usual, I don't know what to say, so I'll dry up now.
He wrote another iconic bass line with just 2 notes, making a possibly boring bass moment into an instantly recognizable classic. 2 notes, but you instantly know the song. No, it's not Vanilla Ice. We're talking about Under Pressure. But despite Mr. Ice's famous protest, sometimes songs sound suspiciously like other songs. And some say that's the case with Another One Bites the Dust. Did this song's success ride on John Deacon blatantly ripping off the bass line from Good Times by Chic? According to an interview Bernard Edwards gave that I had to trace down in this dusty old book I found on eBay just for these 10 seconds in this video, well, that Queen record came about because that bass player spent some time hanging out with us at our studio. But that's okay. What isn't okay is that the press started saying that we had ripped them off. Can you believe that? Good Times came out more than a year before, but it was inconceivable that black musicians could possibly be innovative like that. It was just these dumb disco guys ripping off this rock and roll song. And you should subscribe to Bass Buzz for more foolproof bass lessons. Wow, straight from Bernard Edwards. So let the record be set straight. Good Times came out before Bites the Dust, and John Deacon was in the studio with Chic while they were writing Good Times. But we know Bites the Dust isn't just a carbon copy of Good Times, because that would sound like this.
Walks barely down the street with the brick pull way down low. Ain't no sound but the sound of speed. Machine guns ready to go.
Here's Good Times. And here's Bites the Dust. So they get different in the second half, but they both start with those 3 big fat low notes. And you can hear even more Chic influence in that rhythmic guitar part, which was actually played by John Deacon, not by Brian May. So good. Which sounds a lot like Nile Rodgers on Good Times. Right? So Deaky just totally ripped off Chic, right? Bites the Dust came out in 1980, Good Times came out in 1979. Guess what came out in 1974, 5 years earlier? That's right, Hollywood Swingin' by Kool and the Gang, featuring those exact same 3 big fat low notes on that low E string.
My cousin is one of the people who started Kool and the Gang. And when they wrote the song Hollywood Swingin', I was like, damn.
This was a fascinating interview. I'll link the full thing in the description right below the like button, hint, hint. So Queen ripped off Chic, sorta, but Chic ripped off Kool and the Gang, and then who knows where Kool and the Gang got that idea from. Ultimately, everything is a remix. It's cool to give credit where credit is due when you can, and John Deacon did not give a nod or a songwriting credit to Chic, and they didn't give one to Kool and the Gang either. So an eye for an eye makes the whole world dance, I guess. And I'd argue that Deacon actually improved the bass line, at least for Queen's purposes, because the original has like 10 or 11 notes in it, which is a lot for the average concert goer to like remember and be able to sing along with. It's still an iconic, amazing bass line. I'm not throwing any shade. But Deacon made it simpler, better checking off the anthemic notes checkboxes, so any idiot can sing and recognize this riff. And not to mention, there are other riffs in the song that do not sound like Good Times. And you can learn the full song with the free sheet music and tab in the description. But even with the right notes and rhythm, this song wouldn't have hit the same way without Deaky's distinctive disco-tastic tone. John Deacon was mostly known for playing a Fender Precision bass, one of the most popular basses of all time. The Precision, or P bass, is known for its snarly, growly tone. Growl, growl, growly, growly. But for Another One Bites the Dust, Deaky chose the Music Man Stingray, which was also developed by Leo Fender after he left the company. Known for its nasal, punchy tone, the Stingray lends a more focused, disco-friendly sound to the bass on this track. And it's another place you can see the Chic influence. Bernard Edwards recorded Good Times on the exact same type of bass. I've been curious how Another One Bites the Dust might have sounded if John Deacon had used his usual P bass, so let's imagine together. Whoa. It's like so much looser sounding. Still cool. Huh. If you're one of the literal billions of humans who don't own a Stingray bass, you can get a functionally similar tone with 3 simple tricks. Number 1, pluck with your fingers and pluck near the bridge, which leads to a more tight and clear tone. Plus, it's the only good place to rest your hand on the Music Man. And number 2, you want to roll to your bridge pickup if you have more than one, and then boost the mids control on your bass or amp, so you even further emphasize that tight, honky sound. And 3, use some nice dead strings. I'm not sure if Deacon used flat wounds or just old dead round wounds on this track, but if you have fresh round wounds, you're gonna wanna roll the tone knob or the treble knob down to match the muffly sound of this track. It's just so like punchy, focused, and there's not a lot of top end. And speaking of matching the sound, if you've ever tried to play along with this song, you know that it's not in tune. The bass, guitar, vocals, everything is slightly sharp, higher sounding than you would think that they recorded it. This happened at some point in the analog recording to tape process. Whether it's an accidental artifact of the technology or an intentional choice to make the song a little faster and brighter sounding, we don't really know. Here's how it might have sounded when they recorded it.
Steve walks further down the street with the brim pulled way down low.
It's slower than you expect, right? And a little lower sounding. With the perfect disco punch tone dialed in, Deaky's bass riff is just missing one final piece. The difference between getting the right feeling and fitting with the lyrics and a total garbage flop. A subtle detail that most beginners totally ignore that's not even really that subtle: note length. Yeah, it's not the sexiest name of a thing, but even with the right notes, the right rhythm, the right tone, I can still make this bass line sound like total dog shit just by missing this one thing. Ugh. So bad. Without those perfectly punchy note lengths, this bass riff makes a hot mess all over the song, getting in the way of the vocals and drums. But Deacon's punchy, staccato approach gives the song a feeling of forward momentum, so the bullets can rip to the sound of the beat. Beginner bassists miss this because most music instruction is focused around the beginnings of notes. Like I might tell you to play 3 low E's on beats 1, 2, and 3, and then you go ba, ba, ba. But you're missing that tight finish that makes it go bow, 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 huh. And it's the tight clarity of those notes, along with the tempo of 110 beats per minute, that makes this a perfect song to perform CPR to. The lyrics are a little ironic, but nailing your note length will help keep the chest compressions clean and focused. You could literally save a life with the right note length on an iconic riff, and if you're hankering for some more life-saving iconic riffs, just click on the click the video.
My name is John Richard Deacon. I was born on August the 19th, 1951.
One talk, two tits, John Deacon.